back, everyone, here on the Twitch stage at EGX, the second day, and we have a lot of games today. It's crazy, and right now we're going into Dirty Bomb, and there are like 3 guys here that are going to tell us more about the game. They're going to play it. So, tell a bit more about yourself.
Where to start? So I'm Neil. This is Massey, and this is Jack. So we are 3 developers on Dirty Bomb at Splash Damage down in London.
All right, and something about the game, because everyone's excited for that.
So it's a free-to-play shooter available on Steam. It's the sort of game that we've worked on for a long time. Our studio's been around for 15 years, and we worked on several games like this: Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, Quick Wars, Brink. And this is a callback to those games we made in our earlier years. So it's very fast, very character-driven, as you can kind of see from the screen here. But yeah, it's quite hardcore.
All right.
I think we can go straight into the action here and actually see the game being played. And you mentioned there the history of the studio. Some real classic FPS games there. And you know, in today's day and age, everything's got like aim assist and everything's kind of tailored for a more kind of casual audience. This is an old school FPS shooter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a couple of games. Several. Like Brink was primarily done for consoles first. We also made a PC version. But there was also, the studio's lineage was in this sort of game, so we never really forgot about it. And then you see how much it's really London. We decided, we'd set it in our home because we felt we knew it quite well, and there's a lot of rich things to pick from.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about London is that all of the areas are so iconic, and they're also different. Yeah. It gives us a lot of opportunities to kind of play with different areas and the kind of gameplay opportunities that those spaces create. So we have this map is Bridge, and this is set in London Bridge. So you start out in the Borough Market area.
Oh, it's actually recognisable. I live in South East London. I used to go to London Bridge all the time, and this is just like London Bridge.
Yeah. So hey, it looks like we were in April, where we had the BAFTA Awards. Looks like this.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. There's a lot of places like this in London, and I guess that's a big part of the overall kind of story of the game is that there has been this dirty bomb in London. Yeah. Society's kind of a bit fractured, and people are trying to get loot and information, and trying to get the things that have been left over after this disaster.
Yeah, it's one of the things you always need to do in shooters is find a way to get all the civilians out of the way.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was our way of making essentially a playground out of London where we could have these battles without having to worry about daily life as it was.
It's all in London.
Yes.
How many different maps?
So at the moment in one game mode there's 6 maps. Which, Objective Stopwatch, which is kind of our core competitive game mode, and then we have Execution, which has 3 more maps.
Okay. I think we're going to see a couple of them today.
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
I'm just kind of blown away by just how much it looks like Borough Market in London. Like, you must have done some real good research into getting these maps not completely accurate, but accurate, and also making it an interesting map to play in.
It's not the worst thing to have to do in the world, right? to go hang out at Borough Market.
Yeah.
Some of them are less interesting from a fun point of view, as in like there's one we'll hopefully see that's based on Canary Wharf tube station, which
it's a famous tube station.
It's gorgeous, but it's not as much fun as
it's a very kind of new, very much Canary Wharf, the business, and I guess that's evocative of making it into an interesting kind of a game to play. Is that it does feel like this is what's happened in London. We live in a world where things are always kind of under threat, and it's something people can easily get themselves into and imagine themselves in this situation.
Yeah, and it's something we took into account with the characters as well. It's a bit hard to see during the action, but they're really quite a diverse set of characters. The idea is these are mercs who have come from all over the world, which to us is very London as well. Like, we're a pretty international studio, if you couldn't tell by my accent. And we wanted to represent that in the game because it's something we feel passionate about. And that's one of the other things with this project. It was ours from the beginning. We didn't make this for a publisher. We made it for ourselves and for our fans. So we were able to define that's what it was going to be from the start.
Well, you've always had a strong community base, and this game has kind of grown from them roots of that community.
Yeah, I mean, and they're most communities are. They're very vocal about what they wanted. And we didn't want to just necessarily remake our older games. We wanted to take what we've learned from other games when we did Brink, when we did Arkham multiplayer, all these lessons we learned, and now the Gears franchise, we brought lessons we've learned working on that as well. Just trying to get better and better at what we do.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's alright. You can swap between you have like a gun, you have like a melee weapon, different types of guns or whatever you can play and choose, of course, if you start. Yeah.
Yeah, so
How
when
many do you have?
so every character has like a base loadout card. So
Yeah.
they'll have their kind of signature weapon, they'll have secondaries, and they'll have melee weapons. As you kind of progress through the game and you develop, you get more cards, which gives you slightly different ways to customize how your character plays. So
Alright.
every character has 3 primary weapons and a bunch of secondaries and a couple melees, and then you'll also earn little abilities on top. So if you look to the left of the cards, you have these like little perks that kind of side grade how your character plays, and you can tailor it to the way that you want to be playing games. So
Everyone has something special they can do.
yeah,
Okay,
so if you're playing a character that's got like a smaller health pool, they're going to be a little bit quicker. You could pick perks that's going to suit your playstyle. So if you want to be like flanking the enemy, you can have the perk that allows you to reload while you're still sprinting.
Okay.
And just loads of little gameplay tweaks to allow players to customize how they play without it becoming ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you mentioned obviously the multiculturalism of London and the different types of characters, and that's the thing you're going for. Obviously, it'd be easy to label this game as a class-based shooter, but it's much more than that. It's a character-based shooter.
Yeah, it was something we very deliberately tried to delineate ourselves from, because it actually, when we started the game, it was a class-based shooter because that's what we done previously, and we made the decision because we thought it aligned with our characters better to actually make them a bit more distinct in that way. And you know, it's got some really interesting knock-ons. Like we've started to give relationships between particular characters based on their gameplay roles.
Yeah.
For instance, you saw the guy with the minigun earlier. Like there's a medic that plants a health station, which those two together are a very strong gameplay combo. So we're starting to work these things into the narrative and how these characters are actually, you know, like where they come from, how they met each other, for instance, which is quite cool. It's rather than just being medic, soldier, engineer, we still have a lot of these roles in the game, but we're able to give it a lot more personality.
And it allows you to be more involved in the process. It's not just, you know, a shooting game in a random area. This is a dirty bomb that's gone up in London, and you're playing a character who's trying to get loot and information in that area, and having it as a character-based thing makes it more resonant than if it was a class-based thing.
I hope so.
I think also from a gameplay point of view, because we don't have such strict class roles, all of the characters can do everything as well. So we have, throughout the map, you're going to go through 3 separate objectives. The attacking team is obviously to get through them, but engineers can complete objectives slightly faster than the other mercs. So no matter what role you're playing, you can still contribute in all different areas. Like, you don't have to be a medic to be able to revive your teammates. We encourage people to be playing the same game across the board, but then they pick what kind of character they want to pick to tailor the way that they want to play the game and the goals that they want to be achieving within each match.
Are there any favourite characters you have personally, or favourite ways to play, or is it every single one has got its own little...
Jack is playing his favorite character here.
Yeah.
Phoenix, who he's not really died much, who can resurrect
Okay.
himself. And oh, there you go.
Wow.
You can resurrect yourself, but if someone gets to you before you're resurrecting, or when you're resurrecting, then you can't resurrect,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
All right.
For me, it's Proxy. It's the engineer girl. She plays mines. Normally has a shotgun. You can also have an SMG. Massey?
Yeah, for me it's probably Fletcher, and Fletcher is kind of this quick, agile engineer, so he can complete objectives, but he also has these sticky bombs that he can either place to create traps, or you can use them in combat as like a quick throw and detonating. So he's very versatile in what he can do, because he's very combat viable, and you can complete objectives and help your team in that way.
And is it like a 10-minute map, or how?
In this mode, they generally play out at about 15 minutes. The way it works is for the attackers to progress through the whole thing. They can do it in a few minutes, honestly, if the match isn't particularly balanced. But
Yeah.
normally, it's going to run about 10-15 minutes. The way it happens is when the objective moves on, the time extends.
Yeah.
So that if the defending team is holding it down, the match doesn't drag on. In the stopwatch mode, it doesn't work that way. It's very much both teams take turns and try to set a better time, which is our more competitive mode.
And you mentioned their competitive modes. Obviously, you know, is it the classic matches like team deathmatch and, you know, capture the flag, or have you gone for some more interesting?
We don't have team deathmatch in the game. The game is very specifically tailored to doing very specific objectives, which are actually tied to events in the storyline. We do have what I would say capture the flag elements. Actually, the last objective in this map, when this thing gets to where it's going, is the vehicle you escort. it actually opens a carryable. So it's not that both teams don't fight over it per se. One team is trying to deliver it somewhere to have it do something. And this is something we've done in our games for a long time. You know, back in Wolfenstein, it was you know, you're the Axis or the Allies trying to do something very specific in the middle of a war. So that's something we definitely wanted to keep in our game.
And it allows it, again, for that immersion, rather than having a generic team deathmatch or capture the flag, you're actually doing something in the story of the game, and you have a consequence based on your actions.
It makes it a lot harder, but...
But it makes our map design a lot more interesting, because we can tailor it for the specific game mode and to have these narratives running through the maps. When you create games and maps for all sorts of game modes, the map has to be generic, because it has to accommodate all these different ways of playing, whereas we can create far more interesting experiences because we have full control over the progression of the map, so we can make really interesting gameplay from that.
I'm loving the death animation where you see where the bullet comes from, and you know, rather than, you know, it gives you a kind of a sense of, oh, that's how it happened, you know?
Yeah, I mean, always important.
One of the things that we want to make happen as much in Dirty Bombing as possible is because we want it to be skill-based. We also want you to always understand why things happen. We don't want you to just get killed out of absolutely nowhere. We have a slightly higher time to kill than some other modern first-person shooters, and it allows for more interesting combat. You don't just get headshotted out of nowhere and you're just like, well, there's nothing I could have done about that. Like, there's always counters, there's always opportunities for you to play against other players that if you're better than them, you're more likely to come out of combat on top. We want to promote skill-based gameplay in Dirty Bombing.
And that's like removing, you know, auto aim and, you know, aim assist and all these things that a lot of games have these days, because they want as many people to access it as possible. I want it almost to be a generic kind of bland experience. You want it to be really skill-based, old school FPS mechanics.
Yeah, and we have some characters that are a bit easier to pick up for new players, like the ones we give to the players at the start. We consider a bit simpler. There's some that I'll be honest, I'm not very good with because it's much more complex. You know, but it's a pretty standard thing. But
there's something for everyone.
We mentioned it before that we keep the core of the game pretty similar between the characters. Like they all have the same three sort of weapons. You know, the movement is essentially the same, though they could move at different speeds and have different health. Because we want people to be able to move between characters without it being really jarring.
So every character is really a different experience to play now.
Yes, and they all have different personalities as well. Like they've got, you know, little things you can say. I mean, that's one of the cool things about being in London. We have a wealth of really good voice acting talent that are actually quite reasonably priced and really good. Like our cast of characters are, you know, like loads of them have been in Game of Thrones and all sorts of stuff. And because it's London, it's very easy to get these people. Which has been very nice. And they bring so much to the game.
Yeah, I guess that adds so much to it. The fact that it's based in London, the fact that you're based in London, the fact that you can make this game based on where you live, and you can make it so much more resonant because you've got all those factors you can identify and use.
Yes, absolutely. Like one of the execution maps, our other mode, is loosely based on a brewery I quite like. So we're able to do stuff like that.
So you can organise a shoot up in a brewery. I'm sure there's a joke there somewhere that I can't quite make, but there's something there. From behind. And I mean, you know, one of these, again like this, the old school kind of shooting games, it's very much like you want to have another go. You want to keep playing because you feel like you're constantly getting better, and that you know, that skill kind of, you know, graph is something you're always going to work your way towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the other things about the game is that it's deliberately, I mean, you've mentioned it yourself, but it's got a very high skill ceiling in that it moves very quickly. So yes, you do get better, but we find people that are really, really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Like I can't even get near them. We actually hired one of them recently. Not specifically because he's really good. It just happens to be like that's how he found out the studio.
Yeah.
It's quite funny actually. So it's Jesse. He was a community member, very good at the game. He just dropped by the studio. We're pretty open to that. We gave him a tour, and then he decided to apply for a job. And we're like, yeah, cool. And we got him on the team, and he's so much better than, well, Jack and Massey are pretty good, but he's the best we have. So,
yeah, but it's great for us because we have a really strong community, and they organise lots of tournaments as well amongst themselves. And DB Nation is one of the big forces in kind of competitive DB, and they recently had one of their Proving Grounds tournaments, which is where they let everyone enter. And every so often we'll throw up dev team as well, and it's quite funny because we get to watch the Twitch streams of people kind of taking the mick out of us. But now that we've got Jesse and we've got some better people that are joining the team, we can kind of hold our own against some of these ridiculously talented community members that have been playing Splash Damage titles since Wolfenstein Enemy Territory 15 years ago.
I think that's really great to see people being so good in the game that you're making. I think that gives you like some feeling if you see that.
Well, we get a lot of the devs suck whenever we play the game because some of our community are just so ridiculously good at the game, and you know, we want to encourage mastery. It's why our characters have these that's why they have the abilities. That's why we have a slightly different movement system to some other first-person shooters. How you can wall hop. So it's not just a case of I can shoot you faster. It's also I can evade all of your bullets. I can use my abilities better with all the other characters than you can. There's such an interesting way that you can get your skills up in the game that people just go way beyond what we can do with what we've created.
It comes down to mastering your character, knowing your class, or your character and how that gets used. And again, you mentioned there just how much you embrace that community, the fact that these people that really enjoy the game, they come to the studio and then they're working for you. And I guess that makes the game all the more rich and builds the community even greater.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, so we don't really address it too much anymore. But when we first announced the game, we did it to our existing fan base specifically, and actually did a crowdfunding initiative. So that was quite a long time ago. That's when we were starting initial development, and most of those people have been along on the ride with us for years now. So yeah, the game has evolved quite a lot since then. But they have directly helped us to make this game, and we can't really ever lose sight of that.
Yeah, they see things that you maybe don't see when you're making the game. So that's why it's perfect to get a community in and learn from them in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good because we have so many community members. It's not just that we've got a bunch of people that are always talking to us about the game. We've got a direct communication link between them as well, because we have Discord channels where we can speak to some of our top community members that have been around for ages, and we're always doing a backwards and forwards about new features and new things that we're thinking about putting into the game. And it means that we can have that community relationship with those players, and then also with the public forums we get a completely different point of view of the other players that have just come in, potentially from other more modern first-person shooters. So we can kind of cover our bases with all these different archetypes of players.
Yeah, you see that more and more, that companies really go into Discord and all kinds of things to get really close to the community. Instead of being we're a company, we make our game, they really want that community into their game. So at the end it's the company made it, but the community really helped them, and that's it's very important to get a good game at the end.
I think it's just a reflection of the modern gaming industry, the fact that there's so many avenues now for research and for feedback, whereas before you make a game, you put it out into the public, and you'd have to kind of, with bated breath, to see how people react to it. Now, as soon as you add a new feature or a new character, or you've got that community ready to give you that feedback straight away.
Well, we've always been like that to a degree, because actually the studio was founded by guys who played in Quake 3 Fortress as a team.
School.
Yeah, and then they went on to sort of they were all over the world. One guy was in Holland, one guy was in America. Paul and Richard were in London, and they got together to make a game, and that's how it started. It started through friends who played a game together. And so there's even people who were involved in our community who were, on opposing clans back then. I got a message earlier today from one of our longtime fans who's come into EGX. It's just that's the sort of relationship we have with them. It actually is a friendship, and that's really important to us.
I love the baseball bat. There's something so satisfying.
It looks really
aggressive. Cricket bat. Is it a cricket bat? It's a cricket bat, sorry. Of course, cricket's in London. It's so Americanized by video games.
We've been asked to put a baseball bat in, and I'm just hesitant someday. But with the cricket bat.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's something that we try to carry on throughout the game. Is obviously the cricket bat is quite comedic when you see people whack each other with a cricket bat. It's very London. It's quite British.
It's
very
very British.
And there's a lot of that throughout the game. Like when you're running around, we have this little quick save system. So when you kill someone, you can just make a little quick. And there's lots of British humour that just seeps its way into the game underlying. And it's quite funny because you get these little communities that are built on people ripping out the audio files of the game and putting them online and saying, look at these really funny things that
awesome.
You can get really rare lines that pop up 1 in 100 times, and people love finding all this stuff.
Yeah, because you have a nice t-shirt on as well.
Thank you.
Just checking it, it's oh, that is also something.
Well, it fits in with the British humour, right?
Yeah.
You need that proper British banter, bruv, you get me?
Yeah, it's one of our mottos, because we're such a team-based game. you know, you're supposed to be supporting your teammates, and you can obviously, you can't force people to play together, really,
No.
right? Like, people are going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But the game is best when people are working together, and the sort of people who like the game tend to be the players who like playing with friends, actually supporting each other, so that's why it's one of the hottest.
So it seems like it's going to be a close ending to this game.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah, Jack's holding it down well.
And obviously, you know, this is still officially in beta.
Yeah.
And it's free to play. Anyone can play it. It's on Steam.
Yep.
And it's been about 6 months now. It's been out.
We've been in open beta for more like 14.
Oh, 14. Sorry, I'm misinformed. But the open beta's been more recent.
No. It's been an open that long.
I must have read the wrong website. I'm professional. I'm going to sack myself.
We've had a closed beta. We had a closed alpha.
Okay.
It's I would say this is it's a bit of a passion project for the studio. It's something that is core to what we are. So I mean, we still look at this as the beginning, honestly. Like with this, I mean, ideally a game like this goes forever.
Yeah.
I won't say that's necessarily, you know, I hope so. But yeah, it's you know, we're not even released yet, so we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, and it already looks like a finished product. It doesn't look like a beta build. It feels like, you know, this is a proper game that you can spend. I'm sure members of the community spend hundreds and thousands of hours in it already.
Yes, they have, and thanks. Yeah, but you know, we want to make sure it's you know, it's as excellent as it can be, but before we transition it. And yeah, we got more we want to do.
And I guess you're going to be adding more characters and new map modes. And is there anything you can hint at for any people? Is there any like things you can maybe talk about in the future, or have people got to wait and see?
Well, we're pretty open with what we're working on. So I mean, the biggest one is we're working on a new map. Our maps are fairly massive, as you might have gotten a hint of in the ones that we've seen.
Yeah.
So they do take a good bit of time. I mean, they're pretty unique to what we do as a studio because you've got a series of things. So they tend to be, on average, about like 3 times bigger than your average multiplayer map. So we've got a new map in the works. There's not too much else I can talk about quite yet. So right now we're sort of focused on improving the frame rate and fixing a lot of the bugs that the community has complained about. We decided to just focus on what the community wanted for a period, shore the game up, and then build on that again. Because one of the things with running a live game is that if you're always building new things, it's hard to maintain it at the same time.
You can't really like take it down for a couple of weeks and then put it back up. It's constantly there.
Yeah, so we just wanted to take the time to fix things up, get the frame rate smooth. Yeah, and like I said, then build on it again.
And is it a game people can play? You know, you mentioned the fact that it's quite a high skill ceiling, the fact that it's supposed to be like a proper competitive shooter. Can people play with a controller, or is that just a no-no?
Well, for accessibility, like that, you can set it up to be played like that. I do it sometimes when I'm at home because I just want to have a mess around.
Sit and chill.
And there are a bunch of characters that it's easier to do so because you don't necessarily need the twitch aim on all the characters. Like we have one character called Nader and she's got a grenade launcher. So as long as your placement is roughly correct, you can do it. We don't officially do controller support, but obviously for accessibility's sake, it's possible.
Yeah, because as you said, we don't have aim assist, which is the thing you need more than anything.
Yeah, if you use a controller on FPS.
So we're now in the ground. Yes.
Yeah, this is the Canary Wharf underground station.
As you can tell.
And you can see it's got some familiar. Anyone that's been to Canary Wharf Station, you'll be able to identify certain assets and the way it's laid out. But obviously, with the the dirty bomb that's gone off, it's very changed from what you expect.
Yeah. So that's all the what we call CDA, the Central Disaster Authority, has come in to clean up the radiation.
Yeah.
So that's actually an element that we wanted to. It's actually part of the art style that we had in Brig. Really, we thought we still loved the art we had in Brig.
Yeah.
We had a lot of the same artists, and so we wanted to do London, but still give it this sort of unique visual look.
Yeah, it's got a very unique color scheme, and it's kind of very kind of evocative of a certain feeling that I guess the dirty bomb's trying to espouse.
And not have it be too gloomy.
Yeah.
It's especially when we started this game, there was just a lot of just gritty shooters, and obviously like this game isn't like this. People are bouncing off of walls. There's a degree of realism, but we want the game to be about being fun.
Yeah.
So that looks charming.
I'm getting tips here for when the dirty bomb eventually happens, how I'm going to survive in Canary Wharf. Oh, if I get behind that area, I'll be safe, And obviously you couldn't use the official London Underground stuff, but you've obviously got that flavour with it. You know, you've used the assets really well, and anyone has been to Canary Wharf Station will be able to identify it. Careful here. And this is obviously, you know, a very kind of like, obviously we saw a bigger map now. We're in a very small kind of contained area where a lot of the action can go down. And I guess that's a big part of the gameplay, is that sometimes you're in a big open area with lots of movement, and sometimes you've got to sit bunker down and just shoot the people that come in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about London, is because there's so many different spaces, we can do so much with gameplay, and you can have maps that focus on different areas of gameplay while still accommodating all of the different mercs.
Yeah.
So like in this area, in this actual objective site, it's very, very close quarters. But then when both teams come out of their spawn, there's a long sight line to allow for snipers.
Yeah.
So we take the opportunity to use these different spaces, but making sure that all of the characters can still be viable and still help their team.
And that makes for a more natural, organic experience, rather than, like you say, creating a map that can use all these game modes, and here's a choke point and here's a sniper point. You're using the natural geography and architecture of the location to make the game all the more resonant.
Yeah, and it's a lot of how we pick what map we want to do next, as we look at what do we think is potentially missing, or what can we push forward more in Dirty Bomb. We'll look at a real life location and we'll go, actually that's got a lot of gameplay potential for what we want to do, and then we'll
build something around it.
Yeah, we'll go and do field trips and we'll take reference material. It's a great thing about doing a game in London, is that we can actually go to these places and say, that would be really cool to snipe someone from that window to that
so
window.
you guys are walking there like, let's write
we're
this
there
down.
taking pictures, like making little notes.
Yeah, but most gamers do that anyway, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, once you play a game, you end up like Jason Bourne. You're like planning there, if I was to be in this situation, that's my escape route. That guy looks dangerous. That guy I can take down with that knife over there. And, you know, and I think having it based in a real location makes it all the more interesting as a game, especially, you know, with the setting and how you can identify with the characters you've created. It creates for a lot more, you know, incredible experience.
yeah, and we always have our fans will come to London and they'll end up in an area that they didn't realize was modeled like essentially directly in the game. And there's, you know, there's a Reddit post every now and then about, you know, like, somebody like, holy crap, like I'm actually here. I didn't realize this was a real place.
That's fun.
It's something that I do all the time, honestly, because I've lived in London for maybe 4 or 5 years. I haven't seen everything yet, and I've joined the project maybe just over a year ago, so some of the maps were built before then, and I'll go to places like Camden or London Bridge, and I'll go, oh, that's this thing, and it's like, it's a really nice feeling for it serves two different types of people, I think. For the people that are in London and recognise these areas, it's really nice, and we also can serve kind of this caricatured view of London in some of the maps as well. So like in London Bridge, there's lots of the telephone boxes and stuff that looks typically British to other people from the outside. And that's definitely something we want to push further forward, is getting across some of that really interesting London architecture. And
Well, it does look really great. Well, I don't recognize it because I don't know London that well. I've been there once, but I have to probably check it out, like in game and in real life.